Hey, my name is Evan. I'm 27. 3 weeks ago, I was just a carpenter helping my best friend move out of his childhood home. Then, his mom brought me ice water in her kitchen, looked me up and down, and asked, "You're big now? Do you like older women?" The smell of citrus cleaner hung in the air, ice clinked against glass, and I realized she wasn't joking when she said, "I wasn't really talking about conversation." I'd known Julia Whitmore for 15 years, but that night, everything changed. If you're watching this right now, tell me where you're from in the comments, because I still don't know if what we did was wrong. I pulled into the Whitmore's driveway at 11:47 a.m. on a Tuesday that felt like any other Tuesday, except it wasn't. My truck's out-of-state plates caught Mrs. Alvarez's attention immediately. She was watering her roses across the street, but I could feel her eyes tracking me as I cut the engine. The AC had been running full blast for the last hour, and when it finally went quiet, the suburban silence hit me like a wall. Liam came out of the garage before I'd even grabbed my toolbox. 27 years old and still walking like the kid who used to trip over his own feet in Little League. Some things never change. Ev? He jogged over, grinning. You made good time. I looked around the cul-de-sac. Same perfect lawns, same mailboxes lined up like soldiers, same feeling that I didn't quite belong here even after all these years. Flight got in early, I said, shouldering my tool bag. Where do you want me to start? Liam's phone buzzed before he could answer. He glanced at the screen and sighed. Dad's on speaker. He's supposed to land tonight, but... He shrugged and led me toward the garage. Mark's voice echoed off the concrete walls. Regional sales manager voice. Always sounded like he was addressing a conference room, even when he was talking to his family. Supply chain issues in Phoenix, so I'll be landing late tonight. Maybe midnight. Julia, you there? I'm here, came a voice from the kitchen doorway. I turned, and there she was. Julia Whitmore, Liam's mom, the woman who used to make extra sandwiches for team lunches and never asked for gas money when she drove us to practice. She looked different. Not different like she'd changed. Different like I was seeing her clearly for the first time. She held a tray with 3 glasses of ice water, condensation already beating on the sides. Her hair was shorter than I remembered, layered, professional. She wore a light blue button-down that looked expensive, sleeves rolled to her elbows. Evan, she smiled and walked over. Look at you. The way she said my name made something shift in my chest, like she was tasting it, like it meant something. Mrs. Whitmore. I took one of the glasses. The ice clinked as I lifted it. Thank you. Julia, she corrected, eyes meeting mine for just a beat longer than necessary. You're not 15 anymore. I caught the scent of whatever cleaner she used. Citrus. Clean and sharp and somehow warmer than it should have been. Julia, I repeated, testing it. Mark's voice cut through from the speaker. Ev's still there? Tell him I appreciate him helping out. I know he's got his own jobs lined up. He knows, Julia called back, but she was looking at me, at my forearms, where sawdust from the morning's work still clung to the dark hair, at my hands wrapped around the cold glass. Liam moved boxes around us, oblivious. So the pantry door's been sticking for like 6 months, he said. Mom's been asking Dad to fix it, but I can handle it, I said. And Liam mentioned you might need a shelf built? Julia nodded. In the study. Nothing fancy. Just something functional. The way she said functional made it sound like the opposite of what she really wanted. We worked through the afternoon. Liam and I sorted through boxes while Julia organized the kitchen. Every now and then, she'd bring us water or ask if we needed anything. Normal things. Mom things. Except each time felt like a small electric shock. At 6:15, the sun started its descent behind the neighbor's oak tree. Liam wiped his forehead with the back of his hand. I'm beat, he announced. Pizza? Actually, Julia said from the doorway. I was going to start dinner. Evan, you're welcome to stay. I looked at Liam. He was already pulling out his phone. Nah, I'm meeting Trent in 20, he said. Rain check? Julia's face shifted, barely noticeable, like a curtain being drawn. Of course, she said. Another time. I finished measuring the space where the new shelf would go. The garage door rumbled as I hit the button. But Julia stayed in the doorway between the house and garage, watching me pack my tools. The wall clock in the kitchen ticked, loud and steady. I'll be back at 8 tomorrow morning, I said. If that works? She nodded. 8 works. I walked past her toward my truck. She smelled like that citrus cleaner and something else, something softer, warmer. Evan? I turned back. She stood framed in the doorway, kitchen lights spilling around her. Thank you for helping. It's no problem. I know, but thank you anyway. I drove away with the taste of ice water still cold in my mouth and the sound of that ticking clock following me down the street. I came back at 8:07 that evening. I'd told myself I was just being efficient, getting a head start on measurements. But when Julia opened the front door, both of us knew that wasn't the whole truth. She'd changed clothes, still professional but softer. A light blazer over dark jeans, a silk scarf draped over her shoulders like an afterthought that had been carefully planned. You said 8, I said. I said 8 tomorrow morning. I meant PM. She smiled. The kind of smile that said she knew I was lying and didn't mind. Come in. The house felt different with just the two of us, quieter but somehow more alive. The bowl of lemons on the kitchen island caught the light. The ice maker hummed and dropped cubes into the tray with a soft crash. I measured the pantry doorframe while she leaned against the counter, watching. You've gotten big, she said. I looked up from my tape measure. I guess. No guessing about it. She tilted her head, studying me. You're big now. Do you like older women? The question hit the air like a stone dropped in still water. I stopped measuring and looked at her. Really looked. Her eyes were steady, serious, like she'd been thinking about that question for a while. I laughed because that seemed like the safe thing to do, but she didn't laugh back. I mean conversation, she added, but her voice carried a weight that made the clarification feel like an alibi. Most men my age don't. Talk, I mean. Really talk. The AC unit clicked off. The sudden silence felt loud enough to wake the neighbors. I don't know, I said. I've never tried. She picked up a lemon from the bowl, rolling it between her palms. Mark and we talk about schedules, logistics, who's picking up what, when bills are due. She set the lemon down. We've been married 22 years, and I can't remember the last time we talked about anything that mattered. I folded my tape measure. What matters to you? Books, music, why people do the things they do. She paused. What it's like to build something with your hands and see it become exactly what you pictured. You write? I used to, before Liam, before. She gestured around the kitchen like it explained everything. I keep notebooks hidden behind the flour in the pantry. Stupid, right? A grown woman hiding things in her own house. Not stupid. No? No. She walked over to the island and slid something across the granite. A key. Small and brass, worn smooth. Pantry key, she said. You can start early if you like. I'm always up. Her fingers brushed mine as I took it. Just for a second. Just long enough for me to feel how soft her skin was. How early is early? I asked. 7. Sometimes earlier. She adjusted her scarf. I make good coffee. I pocketed the key. I'll see you in the morning. Evan? I stopped at the front door. What I asked before, about older women? Her voice was quiet now, almost a whisper. I wasn't really talking about conversation. I stood there for a long moment, hand on the doorknob, feeling the weight of her words settle into my chest. I know, I said, and I walked into the night, carrying that knowledge like a secret I wasn't sure I was supposed to keep. The porch light clicked off as I pulled into the driveway at 6:52 a.m. Through the kitchen window, I could see Julia moving around inside, already dressed, already perfect. I knocked softly and she opened the door with a coffee mug in her hand. Steam rose from the surface like morning fog. "You're early," she said. "You said you were always up." "I am." She handed me the mug. "Liam's still sleeping. Mark's flight got delayed again. It's just us. Just us." Two words that shouldn't have meant anything and meant everything. I followed her into the kitchen. The citrus cleaner smell was fainter this morning, mixed with coffee and something that might have been vanilla. Her perfume, maybe, or just her. "What do you listen to while you work?" she asked. "Depends. Classic rock usually, sometimes blues." She pulled out her phone and a pair of earbuds. "Want to try something different?" I took one earbud. She kept the other. The cord stretched between us like a tether. The music was something I'd never heard before. Acoustic guitar, but not country. A woman's voice, soft and sad and beautiful. "Who is this?" "Eva Cassidy. She died young. Car accident." Julia's eyes went distant. "I discovered her in college, used to listen to her albums on repeat in my dorm room." I started sanding a test board while the music played. The rhythm of the work matched the rhythm of the songs. Julia sat at the island, reading something on her tablet, occasionally glancing up to watch my hands move across the wood. "You read a lot?" I asked during a quiet song transition. "When I can. I hide books in the pantry too." She smiled. "Right behind the notebooks." "What kind of books?" "Stories about people who make brave choices." She paused. "And some who don't." I felt her watching me again. The weight of her attention was becoming familiar, addictive even. "Which kind are you?" I asked. She was quiet for so long I thought maybe she hadn't heard me. Then she said, "I'm still deciding." At 8:10, Liam stumbled into the kitchen in boxer shorts and a ratty t-shirt, hair sticking up in three directions. "Morning, sunshine," Julia said, pulling out the other earbud. "Coffee," Liam mumbled. "Magic word?" "Coffee, please, oh beautiful mother of mine." She laughed and got up to pour him a mug. The spell between us broke, but I could still feel the echo of it humming in the air. "Hey, Ev," Liam said, suddenly more awake. "I need help moving boxes to the new place at noon. You free?" I looked at Julia. She was putting away her phone, but I caught her nod. Almost imperceptible. "Sure," I said. "I can be back by 4 to finish the pantry." "Perfect." Liam took a long drink of coffee. "Dad's supposed to be home tonight, finally. You should stay for dinner. Mom makes killer lasagna." Julia's hands went still on the counter. "We'll see," she said. "Your father might be tired." But she was looking at me when she said it, and her eyes said something different than her words. Something that sounded like please and be careful and I'm not sure what I'm doing all at once. "We'll see," I agreed, and I meant it in every way she did. Liam's new apartment was a third-floor walk-up in a complex that had seen better decades. We hauled boxes and furniture up scuffed stairs while his buddies Noah and Trent complained about everything. "Why didn't you get a ground floor?" Trent asked, breathing hard as we maneuvered a couch around a tight corner. "Cheaper," Liam said, "and Mom said the exercise would be good for us." My phone buzzed. A text from Julia. "Take your time. I made lemon bars for later." I stared at the message longer than necessary. Such a simple thing. But the thought that she'd been baking while thinking about me coming back made something warm spread through my chest. "Earth to Evan," Noah said. "You gonna help or just stare at your phone?" "Sorry." I pocketed the phone and grabbed my end of the couch. We finished at 3:45. Liam stood in his empty old bedroom, hands on his hips. Weird, he said. 27 years in this room and now it's just space. Good space, I said. Clean slate. Yeah, maybe. He looked around one more time. Dad's been stressed about money lately, business stuff. Mom tries to hide it, but I can tell. It'll work out. Hope so. He grabbed his keys. You sure you want to come back and finish the carpentry today? It's not going anywhere. I told your mom I'd be done by tonight. Since when do you call her mom? Noah asked. Julia? I corrected. I told Julia. Liam raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. We all headed down to the parking lot. Thanks for the help, Liam said. And for the shoe rack. You didn't have to do that. I'd offered to build him a simple entryway organizer as a housewarming gift, something to help his new place feel more like home. No problem. I'll drop it off next week. I drove back to the cul-de-sac with my hands smelling like cedar and sawdust and other people's old cardboard boxes. The afternoon sun felt heavy on my shoulders through the windshield. Julia's car was in the garage when I pulled up. The front door opened before I could knock. Perfect timing, she said. The lemon bars just cooled. She'd set a plate on the kitchen island, golden squares dusted with powdered sugar, arranged on her good china. A note card propped against the plate read, "For the boys," in her careful handwriting. These look incredible. Old family recipe, my grandmother's. She handed me one on a small plate. She used to say the secret was using real vanilla and not rushing the curd. I took a bite. Sweet and tart and rich. The kind of thing that made you close your eyes involuntarily. Good? She asked. Amazing. There's milk in the fridge if you want. I poured a glass and took another bite. Julia watched me eat like it was the most interesting thing she'd seen all day. Your hands, she said suddenly. I looked down. They were stained with sawdust and dirt from the move. Sorry, I should have washed them. No, that's not. She stepped closer. They're good hands, strong. I can see why you became a carpenter. She was close enough that I could smell her perfume again, see the small lines at the corners of her eyes that appeared when she really smiled. Thank you, I said, though I wasn't sure what I was thanking her for. The garage door rumbled, Liam's car pulling in. Julia stepped back quickly, smoothing her hair. He's early. Mom! Liam called from the garage. Please tell me you saved me some lemon bars. In the kitchen, she called back. But for just a moment before Liam appeared in the doorway, she looked at me and mouthed a single word. Later. I finished the lemon bar and got back to work on the pantry door. The hinge was old and worn, and when I finally got it aligned properly, the squeak vanished completely. The door closed with a soft, perfect click. Julia appeared with a small photo album tucked under her arm. Mind if I show you something? I set down my screwdriver. Sure. She opened the album carefully. Baseball team photos, ticket stubs from games, pictures of Liam and me at various ages, grinning with missing teeth in grass-stained uniforms. On one page, I saw my own name written in her handwriting on a small piece of paper tucked into the plastic sleeve. A page marker from years ago. I always made 2 extra sandwiches, she said quietly, every game day, just in case you boys worked up extra appetite. I stared at the album, at the evidence that I'd been part of her thoughts, her planning, her care, for years without knowing it. Julia, I know it's silly, keeping all this, but some things matter more when you get older. The small kindnesses, the moments that felt ordinary but weren't. She closed the album gently. The air between us felt charged, heavy with things we weren't saying. The garage door rumbled again, Liam entering the kitchen behind us. Julia snapped the album shut and tucked it back under her arm. She caught my eyes and mouthed, "Later," again. I pocketed my tape measure, heart hammering against my ribs, and tried to look like a man who was just fixing a door. But I wasn't. Not anymore. I was a man falling into something I didn't understand and wasn't sure I could control. And from the way Julia looked at me as she turned to greet her son, I could tell she was falling too. The ticking clock on the kitchen wall marked the seconds between what we were and what we might become. And I knew, with a certainty that scared me, that everything was about to change. The storm hit Thursday afternoon while I was unloading lumber from my truck. Dark clouds had been building all morning, and by 4:05 p.m., the air felt thick enough to swim through. Mrs. Alvarez stood under her porch umbrella, watching me carry boards toward the garage. "How much longer will these renovations last?" she called out, her voice sharp with the kind of curiosity that wasn't really curiosity at all. "Few more days," I called back. Hmm, hmm. She adjusted her umbrella and went back to studying her roses like they held state secrets. The first fat raindrops started hitting the concrete as Julia appeared with an armload of towels. "For the wood," she said, helping me cover the boards. "Cedar doesn't like to get soaked." We worked in perfect sync. She'd lift one end of a tarp while I secured the other, hand me a towel when I needed it, small choreography that felt like dancing. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and sighed. "Tara, from the cafe, HOA bake sale reminder," she typed back quickly. I told her I might contribute lemon bars. Thunder rumbled overhead, the kind that makes you feel small. "You don't have to," I said. "I know, but I want to." She looked at me while rain started pattering harder on the porch roof. "It'll give me something to do with my hands while I think." "Think about what?" She didn't answer, but the way she looked at me said everything. At 6:22 p.m., the lights flickered. Once, twice, then went out completely. The sudden darkness felt like being underwater. No AC hum, no refrigerator buzz, just rain on the roof and the sound of our breathing. "Power's out," Julia said unnecessarily. "I'll check the breaker." I fumbled for my phone's flashlight, but Julia was already there with hers. The narrow beam illuminated my hands as I felt along the wall toward the electrical panel. We were inches apart, close enough that I could feel the warmth coming off her skin. "There," she said softly, holding the light steady while I flipped switches. Nothing happened. "Neighborhood's probably out," I said. "Storm knocked something down." "Candles are in the kitchen." She led the way with her phone light, found a thick white candle and lit it on the kitchen island. The flame cast dancing shadows on the walls, making everything feel smaller and more intimate. The house sounded different without electricity, older, like we'd stepped back in time. "I used to keep a notebook of short story ideas," Julia said suddenly. She was sitting across from me at the island, chin propped on her hand. "Back in college, scenes I'd overhear, characters I'd meet." "You still could." "Could what?" "Write stories?" She smiled, but it was sad around the edges. "I'm 46, Evan. That's not when people start new lives." "Says who?" "Says everyone. Says the mortgage and the car payments and the 22 years of being someone's wife and someone's mother." The candlelight flickered across her face. "Says the voice in my head that sounds suspiciously like my own mother." I wanted to tell her that 46 wasn't old, that she had time for all kinds of new lives, that the way she looked at me made me feel like anything was possible. Instead, I said, "What would you write about?" "People who make choices, real choices, not just reactive decisions." She traced patterns on the granite with her finger. "People who risk something for the chance to be fully themselves." We shared a sandwich by candlelight, turkey and cheese that tasted like the most important meal I'd ever eaten. Not because of the food, but because of the quiet between us. The way she handed me half without asking if I wanted it. The way we both ate slowly, like making it last. At 8:40 p.m., the lights came back on. The sudden brightness was harsh, clinical. We both blinked and stepped apart like we'd been caught doing something we shouldn't have been doing, which In a way, we had. Liam's car pulled into the driveway 10 minutes later. He burst through the front door, laughing and shaking rain from his hair. Wild storm, he said. Power was out at the apartment for hours. I came back here to shower. Of course, Julia said, already moving toward the laundry room. Towels are in the dryer. Everything snapped back to normal. Mom mode, son mode, family routine. But when Liam wasn't looking, Julia glanced at me, and I saw something in her eyes that hadn't been there before the storm, a kind of reckless honesty that scared me and excited me in equal measure. The next morning started like any other. 10:18 a.m. in the driveway. Julia and I laughing about mismatched screws that didn't fit the holes I'd drilled. Something stupid and normal and easy. What I didn't see was Mrs. Alvarez behind her rose bushes, lifting her phone to take what she'd later claim was a garden progress shot. What I didn't know was that the angle captured Julia's hand on my forearm as she leaned over to look at my work. Both of us smiling, both of us looking like, well, like more than a homeowner and her contractor. Julia's phone pinged around noon, neighborhood app notification. She glanced at it and frowned. Everything okay? I asked. Just HOA stuff. She put the phone away without opening the notification. Priya called earlier. She's having a gallery pop up Friday night. Asked if we wanted to come. We? You, me, Liam? Mark too if his flight's on time? She said it casually, but there was something careful in her voice. Might be nice to do something normal. Normal. Like we were a family. Like the four of us going to an art show together was the most natural thing in the world. Sure, I said. Sounds good. But even as I said it, something felt off. Like the air before a storm. Charged and waiting. I should have trusted that feeling. Mark's text came at 2:27 p.m. on Wednesday. Landing Thursday, not Friday. Surprise, miss you. Julia stared at her phone like it was speaking a foreign language. He's coming home early, she said, voice completely flat. That's good? Is it? She set the phone down carefully. I should be happy. A wife should be happy when her husband comes home early. But you're not. No. She looked at me directly. I'm not. We made a list. Professional. Clean. What needed to be finished before Mark got home. Boundaries made visible on paper. Complete trim work on study shelves. Install pantry door hardware. Clean up workspace in garage. Final walkthrough and invoice. The HOA bake sale is Saturday, Julia said while I wrote. I committed to lemon bars. Could you cut a wooden display tray as a donation? Of course. I'll pay you for the materials. No need. Evan, her voice was firm. Let me pay you. I understood. Keep everything legitimate, accountable. No gifts that couldn't be explained. Liam came home around 5:50 p.m. and immediately launched into plans. Dad's landing at 8 tomorrow night. Perfect timing for Priya's gallery thing. We can all go together, like old times. Julia started wiping the counter. Long, deliberate strokes like she was trying to erase something. We'll see, she said. Your father might be tired. The kitchen clock ticked louder than usual, or maybe I was just listening harder. Everything felt like it was rushing towards some kind of end, and none of us were ready for it. Thursday morning, I finished the trim work with surgical precision. Every cut perfect, every angle exact. Like if I did the work well enough, I could control what happened next. Julia signed my invoice at 10:05 a.m. Her handwriting was careful and neat. She added a note at the bottom. Thank you for excellent work. Excellent work. Professional. Safe. The kind of thing you'd write for any contractor. We both knew it meant more than that. My phone buzzed around noon while I was loading tools. Text from an unknown number. Lovebirds fixing the house, with a photo attached. I opened it and felt my stomach drop. It was Julia and me in the driveway yesterday, her hand on my arm. Both of us smiling, looking like Well, exactly what Mrs. Alvarez thought we were. The text wasn't meant for me. Someone had forwarded it by mistake, or maybe on purpose. I showed Julia the phone. She went pale. She sent it to Mark, Julia said quietly, and probably half the neighborhood. Her phone buzzed. Mark's name on the screen. See you tonight. Also, hire a different contractor after this week. Julia's face drained of all color. She handed my invoice back. Thank you, she said, suddenly formal, for everything. This completes our business arrangement. The words hit like a slap. Clean, professional, final. Julia, thank you, Evan. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the effort it took. I'll leave your key on the counter. I gathered the last of my tools and walked to my truck. She didn't watch me go. At 1:30 p.m., I drove away from the Whitmore house for what I thought might be the last time. The AC hum in my truck felt clinical, empty, like everything good had been surgically removed from the world. I spent the afternoon at Priya's gallery space, pretending to help with setup. Priya noticed immediately that something was wrong. You look like someone died, she said, hanging a photograph of a river at dusk. Just tired. Mm-hmm. She studied me while adjusting the frame. This is about her, isn't it? The client. I don't know what you mean. Evan. Her voice was gentle but firm. Don't make her choose publicly. I stared at the river photograph. Dark water reflecting the last light of day. Peaceful and sad and beautiful. Can I buy this? I asked. The print? Why? I want to give it to someone. As a thank you. Priya's expression softened. She likes rivers? I think so. She talks about flowing things, natural things. Take it. No charge. She wrapped it carefully in brown paper. But Evan, whatever you're thinking of doing, be careful. Some doors close harder than others. At 7:12 p.m., I drove by the cul-de-sac without stopping. Porch lights were starting to dot the street like landing signals. I could see Mark's rental car in the Whitmore driveway through their garage window. The front door was open, warm light spilling onto the porch. A perfect family scene, husband home from travel, wife greeting him, normal life resuming. I kept driving. Friday night, I parked 2 streets over and sat in my truck. I could see the Whitmore's house through their neighbor's oak tree, Mark's suitcase by the stairs, visible through the front door's glass panel. Julia's silk scarf draped over a chair arm like she'd just taken it off. My phone buzzed. Liam, Dad's home. Weird vibes. You good? I typed back, all good. But I wasn't good. I was sitting in my truck at 10:11 p.m., watching moths tap against my windshield like they were trying to get in, or maybe trying to tell me something. I went home and lay awake staring at the ceiling. Some nights you know your life is changing. You can feel it happening in real time, like watching a slow motion accident. You can see exactly where it's headed, but you can't stop it, and you're not sure you want to. Saturday morning brought the HOA bake sale. 9:15 a.m. on the neighborhood green. Folding tables loaded with homemade goods. Julia's lemon bars were gone within an hour. I didn't attend, but Priya did. She told me later that Julia had loved the river print, said she'd always been drawn to water at dusk without knowing why. Priya didn't mention where it came from. Mark played the perfect husband, shaking hands, making small talk, everything charm and regional sales manager confidence. But Priya also told me his jaw tightened when Mrs. Alvarez complimented Julia's very helpful contractor. At 11:48 a.m., while Julia cleaned up, Priya slipped her a napkin with something written on it. 2 a.m. is quiet, it said. Julia looked at Priya, confused. Just a thought, Priya said gently. Sometimes people need to have conversations when the world isn't watching. Julia pocketed the napkin without saying anything, but her eyes said everything. At 2:07 a.m. that night, I saw it. The Whitmore's porch light blinked twice, off for 5 seconds, then twice again. I was lying in bed, staring through my blinds at the street I couldn't quite see from my apartment, but somehow I knew. The signal was from Liam's old curfew days. 2 blinks meant, I'm okay, but I need you. 3 meant emergency. 4 meant all clear. 2 blinks. I put on jeans and a t-shirt and walked the 8 blocks to her neighborhood. No car, no noise, just footsteps on sidewalk staying in the shadow line. At 2:14 a.m., I stood on the Whitmore's front porch. The chain was engaged. I could see Julia's silhouette through the frosted glass panel, but she couldn't open the door all the way. Julia, I whispered, I'm here. The space between the door and frame was maybe 6 inches, wide enough for words, not wide enough for anything else. Mark saw the photo, she said softly. He assumed the worst. Asked me to pivot contractors to avoid neighborhood gossip. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the hurt underneath. I said yes, to keep the peace. I'll leave town after tomorrow. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I leaned closer to the gap. Julia, I just needed to make sure you were okay. I'm not okay. The words came out in a rush. I haven't been okay in years, but I'm safe, and that has to be enough. Silence. The AC hummed inside the house. Outside, crickets and the distant sound of cars on the highway. I see you, she whispered, in case no one's ever told you that. I see who you are. I see you too. She pressed her hand against the doorframe. I could see her fingers in the narrow gap. I can't leave my family, she said, but I can't pretend this didn't happen either. I'm not asking you to leave anything. Then what are you asking? I thought about that. What was I asking? For her to run away? To break up her marriage? To choose me over 22 years of life? Nothing, I said finally. I'm not asking for anything. Evan. She reached through the gap. Her fingertips touched my cheek, soft and steady. Then she leaned forward and kissed me through the space between door and frame. It was barely a kiss, more a benediction than a claim, gentle and careful and full of everything we couldn't say. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. Thank you, she whispered, for seeing me. She closed the door gently. The porch light went out. I stood there for a moment, feeling the ghost of her touch on my face. Then I walked home through the quiet streets, carrying the memory of that kiss like a secret I'd never tell. Sunday morning, 7:40 a.m. I found a small brown bag on my doorstep. Inside, a tiny keyring screwdriver and a folded note in Julia's handwriting. For emergencies. Thank you for seeing me. I drove to her house at 8:02 a.m. and left the wrapped river print at her front door with a card. For the study. A friend. I also left the finished wooden display tray for the HOA table with a note. Thank you for welcoming me to the neighborhood. At 8:20 a.m., Mark's car backed out of the garage. I was parked far enough away that he couldn't see me, but close enough to watch Julia appear in the study window. She saw the gifts, saw me, raised one hand in a small wave. Then she stepped back into the shadows. 7 days passed, work orders filled, mornings quiet, evenings quieter. I finished jobs around town and carefully avoided the Whitmore's street, except at dusk. At dusk, I'd drive by slowly just to see the porch light and know she was there. Liam texted about pickup basketball. I joined the game and kept our friendship intact. He mentioned his parents were trying date night again, which seemed like a good sign. Priya visited my workshop and noticed the space where I'd mounted Julia's clock, identical tick to the one in the Whitmore kitchen. You bought the same clock? She asked. Seemed right. She nodded like that made perfect sense, which, somehow, it did. Thursday evening, I drove past the cul-de-sac at 8:53 p.m. The porch light blinked twice as I approached. I tapped my horn once, short, quiet, and kept driving. In my rearview mirror, The light blinked twice more. Some conversations don't need words. Some weeks later, I'd stopped counting exactly how many. There was a neighborhood yard sale. Saturday afternoon, folding tables loaded with things people had decided they could live without. I bought a secondhand wall clock, different brand than Julia's, but identical tick. The seller threw in the mounting hardware for free. Back in my workshop, I hung it next to my tool bench. The steady rhythm filled the space like a heartbeat, familiar and comforting and somehow right. That evening, I drove past the Whitmore's street at sunset. The porch light was off, but moths still came anyway, tapping against the dark glass like they remembered when it used to shine. I thought about stopping, about knocking on the door and asking how she was, about telling her I'd bought her clock and thinking of her every time it ticked. Instead, I drove home and listened to my own clock mark the seconds, because some doors don't open, they just stay cracked, and you learn the shape of your life by the light that leaks through. Some nights I still drive by her street. Not often, not predictably, just when the longing gets too heavy to carry alone. Sometimes the porch light blinks twice, sometimes it doesn't. Either way, I know she's there, and she knows I am too. That's enough. It has to be enough. The AC in my workshop hums like the AC in her kitchen. The clock ticks like time passing, like moments shared, like secrets kept. And some nights, when the world is quiet and the moths tap against my windows, I remember the taste of that stolen kiss and the weight of her hand against my cheek. Some doors don't open, but some cracks let in just enough light to last a lifetime.